Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do is go over the basics of a central vacuum unit and how it's hooked up and how you would install it in your home. So once it's installed in the room that you're going to have it in, just like you see on the wall here, you're going to notice that the unit has 4 ports on the outside of the unit. You've got one here, one over here, and then another one at the top of the unit here. What these are is all these ports on the bottom of the unit, those are your suction ports. So all the central vac piping coming from your home that leads to where the unit is at in your home, those pipes are going to plug into either this side or this side. Most homes only have one set of piping coming out that you're going to install on one side of the vacuum. Some homes will have piping coming from 2 different places, and you'll put one side of the piping on here and you'll have the other pipe coming from your home over here. For this demonstration, we're going to show you how most homes are, where you only have one pipe coming from the house to the unit, and that's what we're going to go over here. So when you have one pipe coming from your house, you're going to install it on one end, and then our unit comes with this piece that you see here. It's an extra piece of the PVC pipe with a cap on the end of it. If you only have one pipe coming from your house, you need to make sure that you install that one pipe coming from the house to one side of the unit, and then you're going to want to put this piece with the cap on it on the other side. That's one common problem that we see with a lot of our customers, is they'll put the piece of piping in that comes from their house on one side and they leave this side open, and what that's going to do is you're still going to have free-flowing suction coming from here, and you're going to have no suction to the rest of your house. So if you only have one piece of pipe coming from your home to your unit, go ahead and install that and make sure you put the cap and the piece of pipe on the other end. This port on the front right here also has suction that's going to be going through it, but it has a lid on it with a seal. So as long as that's closed, you're good to go. But if you want, you can take your central vacuum hose and you can actually plug it into the front of the unit on this port right here, and then you can use that hose in the garage or wherever your unit is actually hooked up. So that's one problem we see, is where customers only have one pipe, they install the one pipe, and they don't cap the other end. So if that's the case with yours, you're going to want to make sure you cap that other end. This port on the top is the exhaust port. Our units come with the exhaust muffler that you see hooked up here. And so what you do is you just put the PVC pipe in and install the muffler, and that's going to quiet the unit down while it's running. A lot of our customers will buy additional PVC piping, and they'll actually route the exhaust air to the outside of their home. That way you keep all that hot air and the noise level down in the room that the unit's installed in. Let's see, the other thing that we're going to want to go over is the basics of just how a central vacuum unit works. So you've got the main unit that's mounted in your garage in most places, and then you have all the piping that goes throughout your home. And then all those pipes have these hose connectors on the end of them. So you have your wall outlets. We've installed one just right here on the unit for demonstration purposes, just so it's a little bit easier to explain. So all the piping runs throughout your home, and then you have these wall outlets, and then the hose plugs into your wall outlet. Well, there's a few common issues that we see with that, where people's wall outlets, a lot of our customers don't realize that there's actually these 2 wires that run from the wall outlet, and they run all the way through your house, and these wires run all the way back to your unit. And what these wires do is they tell the central vacuum unit to turn on. So when you plug your hose into your wall outlet, there's these 2 metal bands that you see right here and here. Well, inside the wall outlet, there's also 2 little brass tabs that stick out, and they contact that metal band. So when you're plugging your hose into your wall outlet, you want to make sure that you plug it in correctly and that each individual metal band is contacting those brass tabs that you see inside the wall outlet. If you've done that, then you've plugged your hose in correctly. Alright, so with central vacuum units, there's 2 different styles of hoses. There's the style that we refer to it as direct connect, and it's where the hose end has these 2 prongs that stick out of the front of it right here. We'll include a picture of that style in the video. And when you plug that style in, those 2 prongs are going to plug into the port on your wall outlet. So you plug that in, and then the power from the wall outlet is going to go into the hose through those 2 prongs. The other style is what we refer to as pigtail, where there's actually going to be a cord that runs out of the hose end and plugs into your standard 120 volt wall outlet. So you're going to have the 2 styles. All of our hoses and all of our central vac systems work with either style, so you don't need to worry about compatibility or anything. Whatever style you have, our stuff will fit it. Alright guys, so the next thing we're going to show you in this video is how the central vacuum unit wall outlets themselves work. So right here in this demonstration we've got the unit and then we've got a wall outlet connected directly up to the unit just for demonstration purposes. But in all your homes that have central vacuum units, your home will have multiples of these wall outlets. So you have the piping that runs from the unit, it runs all through your house, and then you have the wall outlets in certain locations in your home. So a lot of people don't realize that the wall outlet actually has wiring that runs from the outlet and it runs all the way through the house and connect to the unit. So for this demonstration, as you can see, we've got the wiring here. It runs from the outlet all the way up to the unit. What this does is when you plug your hose into the wall outlet, it sends a signal to the vacuum and tells it to turn on. That's why your vacuum's not just running all the time and you don't have to go down to the garage or wherever your vacuum's at and turn it on. Because as soon as you plug the hose in and then you flip that switch on your hose to turn it on, it sends the signal through the wiring to the unit and then the unit comes on. So the way that works is most wall outlets, the wires attach to the back of it here and then they run into the unit just like you see here. And if you see inside the wall outlet itself, you'll see these two brass tabs. These brass tabs make an electrical connection with the hose end. So if you see this hose end, there's a metal ring here and a metal ring there. When you plug this hose in, you need to make sure that this metal ring is touching one of the brass tabs and this metal ring is touching the other brass tab. If you put the hose in crooked, like let's say like you put it in at an angle like this, instead of lining it up and plugging it in straight, if you pivot it 90 degrees and then plug it in, what's going to happen is the brass tab, both of those brass tabs is going to be touching this same metal ring, and it's going to tell your vacuum to turn on as soon as you plug the hose in. So we'll demonstrate that here. So I'm going to plug this hose in incorrectly. Instead of plugging it straight into the wall outlet, I'm going to turn it about 90 degrees and plug it in. And as you can tell, the vacuum turned on right away. That's because those brass tabs were touching the exact same metal ring on the hose end. If you see this metal ring, you'll see that there's a gap here on top and bottom. That's because these rings are separate. So when you plug the hose in correctly, what's going to happen is as long as you have your hose turned off and you plug the hose in correctly, the vacuum's not turning on. Now, if you take the hose and turn the vacuum on, you see that the vacuum comes on. That's what's supposed to happen. So a lot of our customers will plug the hose in crooked and the vacuum turns on right away, and we get a lot of emails about that. So that's one of the common problems we see. So just make sure that you plug the hose in perfectly straight and line it up with the wall outlet, and make sure that those brass tabs are touching each band individually. Okay, so one last thing we wanted to show you guys in this video is how to make sure that your unit has adequate suction, and then also how to check and make sure that the unit itself is turning on and your power nozzle is turning on. So we have a lot of customers that will buy the power nozzle and hose kit from us, and they go to use it and then they say that there's no suction. Well, the suction itself doesn't actually come from the hose head or wand. The suction itself is only coming from the unit that you have installed in your house. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, if you notice that it's not picking up as well as it used to or as well as you think it should, you're going to want to check the actual suction at the unit itself. So what you're going to want to do is make sure you have your hose unplugged from all your wall outlets and go out to the unit, and there's an on-off switch on the side of the unit. Go ahead and flip that switch on and it should kick the vacuum on. And then once the vacuum's actually running, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go throughout your house and find all of your wall outlets. And while the vacuum is running, go to your wall outlet and go ahead and open up the flap and test the suction with your hand. If you're having trouble even opening up the flap, chances are you have adequate suction because it's keeping the flap shut. If you're able to open it up and test it and it feels kind of weak, the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to inspect inside of that wall outlet, make sure there's no clogs or anything right there at the beginning of it, and also check any of your piping that you possibly can and check it for clogs. Once you've done that, if there's no clogs or anything that you can see, the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take this tank off on the bottom, dump the dirt bin out, clean it out as best you can, And you're also going to want to make sure that all your filters are clean as well. We've already got a video on how to check and clean your filters, so go ahead and check that out in the link below, and you can see the video on how to clean and check the filters there. Once you've checked the filters, you've checked your plumbing, if you're still noticing that it just seems like it's not picking up that well, but the vacuum itself has decent suction, then what you're going to want to do is just make sure that when you hook up the hose in the head, that you are making sure that the head turns on and that the unit itself turns on, because that's what your hose does. When you plug the hose in, it turns on the power nozzle, and it also sends a signal, like we explained earlier, to turn the vacuum itself on. So go ahead and flip that power switch back the other way on the unit, that way it's not just running by itself. And then go ahead and plug your hose in. And when you plug your hose in, like we explained earlier, there's two different styles of hoses. There's the pigtail style, and then there's also the direct connect style. So this one right here is the pigtail style, where the power that runs the power nozzle comes through this cord that's plugged into the wall outlet down here, and the power runs through the hose and gives power to your head. The direct connect style has two prongs right here, and those two prongs plug into the outlet on the wall outlet. So either style, just make sure that your connection's good and that there's no issues there and everything's seated correctly. Once you've done that, now what you should be able to do is on your hose, when you go to the number 1 setting, it should just turn the vacuum on. So once the vacuum turns on, you should hear the suction at your wall outlet. You can actually turn it on to that number 1 setting and go out to your garage and actually make sure that the unit's running. If that's happening, then everything's good to go. When you do the number 2 setting, it should turn on the power nozzle and the vacuum at the same time. One thing to remember on these power nozzles, a lot of power nozzles, you have the on-off button on the hose itself, like you see here. And then a lot of power nozzles also have an on-off button on the head itself. So make sure that both of those are turned on. If you're not having any or if you are having any troubles with the head not turning on and you do have an on-off button on both, make sure they're both on. That's another common issue that we see, where the hose is on but the head is off. So turn on the hose, and then if the head's still not turning on, then hit that power button on the head a couple times and you should see it kick on. A lot of other power nozzles, like this one here, you have to have the pivot released in order for the head to turn on. So if we just turn it on like this, the head doesn't turn on. But with this particular model, you have to release the pivot as well. So as you can see here, we'll go ahead and turn it on. So as you can see right there, the only way to get the power head to turn on was to actually turn it on the hose and release the pivot. If you have the power head turning on and the unit turning on and it's still not picking up, then you want to check the suction on the end of your hose. So go ahead and turn everything on, take your hose off, and you're going to want to just test the suction on the end of the hose. Now if you have bad suction at the end of the hose, then there's probably a clog within the hose itself. You could take like a coat hanger, a wire coat hanger, and undo it and shove that through the hose to try to clear the clog out. You can also take like a broomstick, if you can get at least a few feet down into the hose with that, and might jar the clog loose. And then another tip that you can do is go ahead and take the hose off, and then with the hose you can make the vacuum turn on. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the hose and put it in this front suction port while it's running. And typically if you do those things, you'll be able to unclog the hose. So that's pretty much it. That's the basics of how these work. If you follow those steps, you should be able to troubleshoot any issues that you're going to have with your central vacuum system. Two more places that you're going to want to check for clogs on your central vacuum system is going to be the actual power nozzle itself and the main electrical wand that you see here. So if you've checked the unit, the filters, all of your house plumbing, the wall outlets, all that stuff that we've already covered, then you're going to have to check these. So take the wand off, and you can easily just hold it up and look down it. If you see a clog in there, you can take a coat hanger, shove it down in there and lodge the clog out of there. Or you could take a broomstick that fits inside there too and get it out of there. And then the other place you're going to want to check is inside the power nozzle. So you can see down in the pivot, you can visually inspect that, and then you can also, if you look at the head right here, you can see that's where all the suction goes through. And typically if there's a clog, you'll see something in there. And same thing applies, you can even take your hose and shove it down in there and suck the clog out. Or same thing, get a coat hanger and dislodge it from there. But that's pretty much all the places to check for clogs.